Are you tired of stubborn jawline breakouts that flare up just before your period, no matter how many products you tried? Today we're talking about the best foods for hormonal acne, and more importantly, why they actually work. Because hormonal acne isn't just about skincare products, it's about what's happening inside the body, with hormones, inflammation, gut health, and how well the body can actually detoxify. If you're wanting to know the main drivers of your acne, then I'm going to put a link in the description box to my root cause checker so that you can go and check that out. Now let's break down the top foods that actually make a difference when it comes to hormonal acne. The first food is broccoli sprouts. Broccoli sprouts are incredible for hormonal acne. Broccoli sprouts are rich in sulfur, which is going to support the body and the liver in breaking down and processing hormones such as estrogen. When we're thinking about hormonal acne, one of the big areas that we really want to support is going to be your liver, because your liver is going to be processing and breaking down different hormones such as estrogen. And if those hormones build up and they recirculate within the body, this can not only drive acne but also symptoms of estrogen dominance. And this can especially be problematic if your beta-glucuronidase enzyme in your gut gets too high, because what happens is estrogen is then recycled instead of being flushed out of the body. So if you're someone who's noticing that your breakouts are on your jawline or your chin or even on your cheeks, but you're noticing this hormonal pattern before your period, then increasing broccoli sprouts can be incredibly helpful. And it's similar with this second food as well, which is radishes. So radishes are also really high in sulfur, and they work in a really similar way to support the liver and really bring down this beta-glucuronidase enzyme. What you're starting to see here is that supporting the liver and supporting your gut health are really important areas if you're wanting to support your hormonal acne. And keeping on a similar pathway where we are supporting the liver and the detoxification, because one thing I will say is liver detoxification is a very complex topic. There's multiple different phases that the liver will go through to detoxify various different hormones and various different types of toxins, and we're actually going to need a variety of minerals, vitamins and amino acids for this process to actually function optimally. So yes, you may have heard that we don't need to support the liver because the liver does what it needs to do on its own, but actually it's unable to perform its functions effectively if you're not giving it the nutrients that it needs to be able to perform its functions. What we're going to do now is we're going to be supporting liver with herbs, but just remember that actually when it comes to the liver, we need to make sure that we have those minerals, those vitamins and those amino acids for it to function effectively. But talking about this next food that I'm coming on to now, which is number 3, is dandelion root tea. And like I mentioned, hormonal acne can get worse if your liver is sluggish. Because what the liver does is it breaks down hormones such as estrogen. Dandelion root tea can support certain pathways with the liver and therefore support hormonal acne that is driven by having sluggish liver detoxification. And this is a really gentle way to support your liver on a day-to-day basis. So if you're not already, I would highly suggest drinking some dandelion root tea. With number 4, we're also supporting your estrogen, and this is with flax seeds. Flax seeds are unique because they contain what's called estrogens. And what these phytoestrogens do is they bind to estrogen receptors in the body. This means that they can gently boost estrogen when it's low and also bring estrogen down when it's slightly too high. Either way, they can be really beneficial in helping to balance out certain hormones. One thing that I will say here is high estrogen alone isn't necessarily a drive in acne. What we're looking at when it comes to estrogen is the ratio and the balance between estrogen and progesterone. So just to make that really clear, when it's symptoms of estrogen dominance, it's because the estrogen is higher compared to the progesterone. Now that may be high estrogen with a relatively okay progesterone, and it may be okay estrogen with a very low progesterone. So when it comes to hormones, we're actually not just supporting the estrogen, we're supporting the underlying root cause of why all of these hormones might be out of their natural balance. But what we can see with something like flax seeds is it's a really great way to gently support your estrogen on a day-to-day basis. Number 4 is sardines, and the reason for that is because they are very high in omega-3. And I know that I've previously mentioned salmon, wild-caught salmon, so I wanted to give you something different. But of course, if you don't like sardines, you can opt for any other types of oily fish: salmon, sardines, herring and mackerel. And the reason for this is because inflammation is a really big driver for acne. Because with acne, it's not just about clogged pores, it's also about inflammation in the skin. And like I mentioned, sardines are packed with omega-3. And omega-3s actually turn down inflammatory molecules called cytokines. And these cytokines have been directly linked with acne. What we need to think about is actually the balance and the ratio between omega-3s to omega-6s. And what omega-3s help to do is balance out the omega-6. So if we're having too many omega-6s in our diet and not enough omega-3s, then we can start to see this inflammatory pattern. But when we get our ratio into a really good balance, then this can really help with those inflammatory breakouts. And actually what some research has shown is that people who don't eat as much fatty fish with omega-3s do tend to have worse acne. But adding in these fatty fish foods with omega-3s can really calm the inflammation and help to make your acne breakouts a lot better. They calm the inflammation, reduce the redness, and even reduce a hormone-like signal called IGF-1 that stimulates oil production. So to recap, so far what you're going to be adding into your weekly food shop is broccoli sprouts, radishes, dandelion tea, flax seeds, and sardines for the omega-3 fatty acids. And the final food that you can add is a bit of an interesting one, and it's actually oysters. And that's because it's one of the richest sources of zinc. And zinc is going to be amazing for acne. It has strong anti-inflammatory properties, which is going to reduce the swelling, the inflammation, and the redness in the skin. It helps to regulate testosterone and androgens, which when they get too high, it produces more oil in the skin, which can be a driver for breakouts because it can clog the pores. Research has shown that lower levels of zinc have been associated with more acne breakouts, and even in more severe forms. That's why getting in enough zinc through foods like oysters is incredible. Now, I know that some people do take zinc supplements, but it's important to be aware that with zinc supplements, we can, first of all, take way higher of a dose than what our body actually needs, which is problematic because it's then going to push down our copper mineral. And copper is also really important for having healthy hormones and clear skin. So what we don't want to do is end up with this excess amount of zinc and really low copper, because that's also going to be problematic. And anytime we take a zinc supplement, it can cause some stomach upset, so we always want to be taking that with. But to make sure that you're getting good amounts of zinc throughout your day, but you're not overdoing it with zinc, then this is where we want to be reaching more towards food sources like oysters. But we can also get zinc from nuts, from multiple different seeds, and from so many different fruits and vegetables. So just as long as your diet is rich in zinc foods, then that is going to be so helpful for helping your skin. So those are the top 6 foods for hormonal acne that I would definitely suggest that you include in your diet. But before we wrap up, I want to just clear something up, which is really important when it comes to hormonal acne. Research in dermatology has now suggested that the term hormonal acne is incredibly misleading because all forms of acne have a hormonal connection or are connected to your hormones. Hormones can drive oil production and inflammation in everyone, and especially in women when we are in puberty, when we are going through our menstrual cycles, and even when we are pregnant. And yes, this can definitely be connected with androgen hormones such as testosterone. However, acne breakouts that are related to hormones can also be connected to various other hormones and not just testosterone. These can be things like cortisol, insulin, an imbalance in your estrogen to progesterone ratio. It can even be related to lower progesterone. There's various different hormones that tie into this process. We also want to think about potentially thyroid hormones as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to link to a video here where you can learn more about the different types of hormones that are connected in hormonal styles of acne and how that could be driving your acne as well. And something I always say is there's always going to be an underlying driver as to why hormones are out of balance in the first place, especially when we are referring to reproductive hormones like testosterone, estrogen, and progesterone. And like we've discussed in this video, we're thinking about inflammation, detoxification, and gut health, just to name a few. But you may have noticed that I mentioned insulin and cortisol, in which case we're also thinking about your blood sugar and we're thinking about your stress levels, because getting your blood sugar and your stress into a really good place first is going to help to be that foundation for these other hormones to move back into balance. And yes, stress is also going to be impacting your blood sugar. So there's a lot to really unpack when it comes to this. What I want you to do for now, if you're struggling with these breakouts, is focus on these foods that I've mentioned throughout this video. Because what that is going to do is it's going to be supporting your liver, it's going to be supporting your gut health in terms of reducing potentially high beta-glucuronidase activity. And we're also reducing inflammation and getting that under control. Broccoli sprouts, radishes, dandelion root tea, flax seeds, oysters, and sardines. These are not just random foods that I've just randomly selected. They really help to regulate the processes in the body that are driving hormonal acne. But remember, it's not an overnight fix. But supporting your body from the inside out is going to make your skincare routine way more effective. So let's chat through your homework activity now. Step 1 is going to be increasing your sulfur every single day. Eating a handful of broccoli sprouts or a few radishes. These are going to help your liver to keep flushing out that excess estrogen. Number 2 is supporting your liver. Swap your afternoon coffee for the dandelion root tea and drink that every single day. Number 3 is to be balancing your estrogen. Sprinkle 2 tablespoons of ground flax seeds onto your breakfast every single day to gently help to support the balance of your estrogen. Step 4 is to fight inflammation. Eat a serving of sardines or another fatty fish 2 to 3 times per week to support your omega-3 to 6 ratio and also reduce oil triggering IGF-1. And number 5 is to boost your zinc. And you can include oysters once per week or rotate in other zinc-rich foods. And these are things like pumpkin seeds, beef, or like I mentioned, the oysters. Zinc is regulating oil production and speeding up the skin healing. Thank you so much for watching this video, and if you found this helpful, then you're gonna love this next video here, because I'm talking all about different ways hormones can be driving your acne, and I'm also breaking down the full anti-acne diet of how you can start implementing not just individual foods into your routine, but actually how you're eating, when you're eating, to help balance your blood sugar and keep your skin clear and glowing with every single meal that you're having. So I will see